All right, thanks for everybody for showing up today. We had a change of plans here. We were going to do a webinar on permitting and things like that. We had a few commitments fall through. We had to change course on that. So we're going to do a little bit of an update or question and answer from you guys. We're really looking and hoping from you guys to get some good questions, some good feedback. We have a few things that we want to move forward into the program, and we need feedback from you guys. So if you could kindly participate on that, it'd be greatly appreciated. One of the new things that the SEC just approved today was a little bit more of engineering assistance for you guys. Um, we uh, we did an amendment to our agreement with the center to provide more engineering support. If you need engineering support, go to that portal that we have set up for you guys. Request engineering. Could be I&Es, designs, or checkouts. Whatever you need, submit that in that portal, and we should be able to help you out a little bit better than what we have been. So there's a lot more support in engineering for you guys, and we hope you utilize that. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Sam. She's going to run the rest of the meeting. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Eric. And thank you everyone for hopping on. I really appreciate the attendance. Wasn't sure how many people would be able to hop on, so I'm glad to see so many names showing up. Like Eric mentioned, we just have a couple of updates for you guys before we're going to kind of open things up and allow for questions, comments, concerns. So I'm going to start with a little bit of an update from the ACAP team. I believe you should all be aware that they are now hosting the PASS grazing certification trainings. They just had one last week. There will be a second one at the end of the month, just because there was so much interest and we had a lot of people sign up. And then there's also going to be the second portion of that is hosted at 2 different dates in July as well. So be on the lookout for those emails. And if you're interested in learning more about that, feel free to shoot any of us an email and we'll get you updated on that as well. Next, moving on, I'm going to give some updates along with my regional colleagues are going to give some updates about our subcommittee work groups that we have for the ACAP program. Katie, if you're ready and would like to start with yours, I'll hand it over to you.
So the work group met last week to provide feedback on several documents that are currently being developed or are being updated. So we had a great discussion, so I just wanted to highlight a few of the key items that we reviewed. 2 newly created documents include a site visit data collection sheet. This is an optional document that's intended to support the early stages of an on-farm site visit. So it helps with gathering preliminary information on the crop, pasture, and farmstead, so you can identify resource concerns and note existing BMPs. The idea for this sheet is that it's meant to serve as one of the first steps for identifying problems, so you can use it to then move on to the next step of discussing more detailed information, which is often referred to as your I&E. A second form that we recently created was a setback waiver request form. Per the ACAP setback policy, applicants must request a waiver if they can't meet that 35-foot setback requirement when installing a waste storage facility or heavy use area. Previously, there was no existing waiver form, so we created one so that it can be completed by the grantee if needed, and then it would be approved or disapproved by the district and the commission. One of the existing documents that we're in process of updating is the revised grantee conservation district agreement. This revised agreement is now better organized and it has sections like agreement overview, project funding, general provisions, etc. So it's a little bit easier to understand. And then we also included new language to allow the districts a little more authority in requesting reimbursement for expenses that have already been incurred in the case where a project falls through, and some additional language similar to that, just to give the districts a little bit more ability to ask for certain things from the grantee. We're converting this into more of a packet format in which it will include important existing documents like the conservation district, local policy, prevailing wage acknowledgement, etc. It's basically those like important attachments to ensure that all the required documents are together in one spot and are being signed, since I know there's a lot of documents floating around and it's easy to miss or forget them. So it's just kind of keeping things more organized and together. So we're still in process of finalizing these documents, but once they're completed, we'll distribute them to all the districts so that you guys can use them as part of your program process. So that's kind of an overview of how our meeting went.
Thank you, Katie. Patrick, do you want to give an update on the silvopasture committee?
Sure, yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for being here. Most of you are probably aware that we've been in the process over the last 6 months or so of developing a silvopasture practice standard for use in ACAP. The reason being NRCS in Pennsylvania does not have a practice standard for silvopasture. And it was something that we've been getting a lot of questions about. It seems to be a growing interest in. So we thought it would be valuable to develop that practice standard so that districts can work on those projects and have that opportunity should they have projects come through the door and farmers that are interested. So we've put together a group of different consultants. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the group Trees for Grazers. One of their consultants is working with us. We have foresters from DCNR. We have some district folks, some farmers as part of that. And we've been working to put that practice standard together. We're largely through that process. Some minor things that we'll be working on over the next month or so. And then from there, once our small work group has completed our work, all of that information and those plans are going to go to the full ACAP work group that Katie was discussing for their workup comments. And then from there, after that, it'll go to the SEC board for their approval. And hopefully then from there, once everything is settled and everybody has made the approvals, we'll do some informational work and some trainings, webinars like this, to get that information out to all of you guys so that those projects can start to hit the ground. So it's been really successful, very happy with the way the group has been going, a lot of good conversation, good discussions related to those meetings. And yeah, we're really excited to see how it ends up.
Thank you, Patrick. Next, I'm going to turn to Becca for her update.
Hi, so the procurement committee has continued to try and work on some contract documents. We have a meeting set for July 2nd to review those. Some of the drafts that we're reviewing is the grantee and contractor agreement with comments from upper management, a bonding attachment, a contractor notification list, and an insurance attachment. And then we're also trying to get finalized before the second, well, not finalized, but get a draft ready for review for a payment schedule as well.
Okay, thank you, Becca. And then I have some updates on the forestry subcommittee. We are working together to compile a list of best management practices that we can fund through the ACAP program. And we have a list of those formed up, and we are working on pulling together the standards for those before taking them to the main ACAP work group committee for their approval to then take to the SEC as a whole to get those best management practices approved as eligible ACAP projects. So that's all I had for the time being. Eric, did you have anything to add that I might have missed?
No, I think you got everything covered with the updates on the subcommittees and everything. I will reiterate or bring up that we're always looking to improve the ACAP And any suggestions from you, whether it's a new BMP or maybe a change in policy or anything like that, please bring to our attention, because we can get that into a subcommittee and we can work those things out. So if any suggestions that you may have, please reach out to us. We want to make this work for not only us, but for you guys at the local level. So you always got to remember, this is a local control, and it needs to be part of your program as much as it is part of ours.
Thank you. And now, just looking in the chat, I saw that there's a question about what kind of forestry practices. So I can read off the list that we currently have. And if anyone has input, feel free to let me know, or if you would like to be a part of the next subcommittee meeting, again, feel free to let me know and we can add you into those. So we have erosion and sediment control plans, access lane improvements, reseeding, invasive species control, herbaceous weed treatment, forest trails and landings, stream crossings, forest trail closings, felling trees into streams, and riparian buffer planning. And then there's another question in the chat. When we are discussing updating all these different forms, are they model forms or are they going to be mandatory?
I'll take that one. A lot of these forms we want to try to make as uniform as possible. The reason being is we want to get this stuff into GIS to make it easier for you guys to print everything as far as a package, and try to save you a little bit of work. Some of them will be model forms that you might be able to change a little bit, but some of them might be mandatory. So there's going to be a little bit of both. So always clear as mud. So we will let you know which ones we expect you to fill out and be mandatory. So once we get the final versions, we'll let you know.
Mm-hmm. Did you want to touch on the next question, Eric, as well, since you gave that update earlier on the main call?
Yeah, sure. So the touch on the engineering, of course, Jen, she's on here, right? Jen, you still there?
Yep, Jen's on.
Yep, I'm here. You want me to answer the question?
Yeah, you can probably elaborate on it a little bit better than what I can.
Sure. So we're going to hold an entire separate ACAP webinar on this. We're going to give people some time and advertise it, so that'll come in the future. But this is nothing different than what's being offered now. It's just more, and with more engineers than just HRG. So the same engineering assistance request program that exists through ACAP currently. If you've got projects that you need engineering support for that you can't find locally, or there's complications that your local engineers aren't able to handle, or any other complication that puts you in that position, you can submit those projects to the Engineering Assistance Request Program. I'll put the link in the chat again, just so everybody has it handy. And what was approved this morning at the SCC commission meeting was simply putting money into that pot from now until the end of next year, while we're working to get all the federal money spent, to be able to provide more of that support. So we've been contracting with HRG to offer that support. It might be helping with I&E type work, or doing shovel-ready designs, or working all the way through a project from start to finish, what we would call a showcase project, and providing all the engineering services. You can ask for any of that help. We also will help with just some of that initial site visit stuff and collecting data also, and that's something that our staff and SEC staff can help with. We don't need to contract out, but then we will handle, in this new situation, since it's not going directly to HRG, we will handle the request for quotes, paperwork for you, and put that out there and solicit quotes from engineers and work on the contracting paperwork for you for your projects, and then oversee and make sure that that work gets completed and pay it directly out of that pot of money that the SEC is passing through us. So that's basically the change there.
Thank you, Jen.
The only thing I'll add to that, we are putting a little bit more support into the pass system to try to get those those certifications out a little bit quicker. So that's the only addition that I would put to what Jen said.
Thank you. Then there is another question in the chat. Is there any discussion with the admin manual on how to handle obligation and maintenance inspections procedures? Are we required to inspect everything to assure maintenance of BMP through project lifespan?
Yeah, the MM manual is still in the process. We're looking at all kinds of policies like that. We haven't worked everything out yet, but if you would have any suggestions on what you would like to see in that, please feel free to send that to us, Mark. So.
And you guys can feel free to type any questions or comments in the chat, unmute yourselves and speak. I'm not sure if there's a raise hand feature, but I think we had a few prompt questions as well for discussion if no one had any specific questions right off the bat. Becca, I know you had mentioned earlier about the delegation agreement. Could you remind me how exactly you had phrased that question?
Yeah, just hoping to gather information from the districts. The current delegation agreement does end in June 2027. So this is, a bit ahead, got 2 years, but we'll probably want to have the next delegation agreement ready before the old one ends. And if there's any commentary from the districts on things that they felt needed added or needed changed to the current agreement, it would be great to start getting some of that feedback back now.
Thank you. Yep.
I know one of the questions that we've been kicking around at SCC is the minimum amount obligated to the conservation districts. Right now, we have a minimum of $300,000 for their allocations per year. We would love feedback from the districts, whether they think that's too little. You would think you would need a little bit more to maybe up that minimum to maybe 500,000 or 600,000. But would love some comments on that. And please feel free to unmute and share your thoughts. I'd rather have talking going on than typing in questions and answering it that way. Oh, I do see a question in the chat. It says, when do you see the 25, 27 allocations? I figure you probably mean 25, 26 allocations to be available for allocating the contracts. Our hope is July, but I'm sure many of you are probably aware that that might be unrealistic. We've heard maybe August, September. Hopefully it's not too much further past than July and what we've been hearing. So, but yeah, you can possibly expect some delays on when we get that allocated. The nice thing about it is we already have the allocations approved. Once the budget passes, we will be able to send out those allocations. So I see some people that's suggesting that the minimum go up. What would your suggestion on the minimum be? And why?
This is Donna Fisher in Blair County. You know, the minimum is going to be somewhat dependent on what your total allocation is going to be. So obviously we would always like to see more. And as the comments in the chat are written, you know, $300,000 doesn't go very far with a large project. So it's kind of hard for us to determine what we would like to see as a minimum because we don't know long-term what the allocations are going to be.
Yeah, so right now we have the Clean Streams Fund. It's funded at $50 million annually. We don't see that number going down anytime soon unless somebody absolutely cuts it off, which $50 million, we get $35.75 million per year for that. So that's sort of what your baseline is that you would look at. I think the districts will get about 32 million of that 35 is what the districts will get and when it's all said and done. So I think I calculated out what that may be. I never did any other calculations other than a $300,000 minimum. So, but I think we can stretch it out pretty decent if we would increase it. So I don't think it would be a problem.
So then I would think $500,000 would be a nice minimum.
Oh.
Hi, Eric. This is Katie from Warren. I'd also agree that 500,000 would be a much better minimum. We have kind of a waiting list going on right now in Warren County where we have more projects than what we can fund. And now that we're going to start running out of that federal money, it's going to take us quite a while to encumber enough funds to work our way through that list. So we'd definitely like to see an increase.
And the thing is, we can set a minimum, and if you think that's too much money, you can always tell us, hey, I don't think we can take all that. Just let us know what number you think would be good, and we can adjust our numbers from there. But we'll need to know that ahead of time, which we wouldn't do that until fiscal year 26, 27 now, since we already have 25, 26 already done. But we can look at that in the future. It's good to get your feedback on that. I appreciate the comments that you guys have so far on this. So if you have any other suggestions on anything else, please let us know.
Yeah.
Hey, this is Mark in York. Question on the bidding. Once we're out of the federal money and only using state money, will the sealed bids still be procedures required to be used?
Yeah, the bidding actually, we got a waiver from the state to use their bidding requirements, to use our own bidding requirements. I don't see that changing any. I could be wrong, but it's something that I don't really see changing any. So we'll probably just stick with that, because if we would try to do the state requirements, which we would be obligated to do, it's going to be more restrictive than what we already got with the waiver.
Okay. Goes everything understood before that we were bidding because of the federal money, not because of the state money. So there's actually a state requirement?
Yes, there is a state requirement, yes.
Okay.
So Mark, how that came about was we got federal money, and the federal funds had certain restrictions that they had, but we had to fall back to the state funds. And when we got talking with I think it's Department of General Services, some of the attorneys and stuff like that, they said if you can request a waiver for what the federal had set up and meet their requirements for the bidding requirements. and that was less restricted than what the state was. So we got a waiver for that. So that's why it's going to probably not go anywhere.
Okay, thanks.
Then Eric, there was another question about the 500,000 minimum in the chat.
Mhm. Yep.
Did you want to
Yep.
speak on that?
Yeah, so it'll be a $500,000 minimum, and then yeah, the rest of the funds would use the formula like we've been doing it. So it wouldn't be any change; it'd just be the number of the minimum.
And then going off of what Sarah has put in the chat, I have heard some other counties say that they have noticed that with sealed bids that they're coming back pretty significantly high compared to other counties in central or south central or southeast PA, just because there aren't as many contractors able to take on that workload. So we are aware that many counties are facing that issue.
Any other questions anybody has that they want to raise? Any concerns? Complaints about us? We always like constructive criticism here. So if we don't know what we're doing wrong, we can't fix it. So if we're doing something wrong, let us know.
Katie, Patrick, Rebecca, do you guys have anything you'd like to add? Any questions you'd like to pose for the group?
I think one thing I'd be curious to hear about either here or, just food for thought for everybody, over the next weeks, months. If there are additional practices that you would like to see eligible for funding. We talked about the forestry work we're doing, the silvopasture work we're doing. If there are other things out there that you'd be interested in funding, or maybe you saw somewhere else and you were intrigued by, let us know about it. It's definitely, we're, I think, pretty open to new ideas, new projects, new practices. So, we'd certainly be interested in hearing about that and learning about things if there are additional opportunities out there.
Yep, that's a good point to bring up, Patrick. Thank you. And yes, we do plan to reschedule the plans and permitting meeting. We're working on coming up with a date that works best for those outside organizations to come in and help present with that. And we will let you know when we have that rescheduled.
That brings up another point. We just had a brainstorming meeting on last Monday about webinar topics. If there's any topics that you guys want us to cover, please let us know, because we need to. If we're doing these monthly, we're going to need a lot of feedback from you guys on what you guys want to hear about and what would be worth your time to take a little bit of time out of your day to participate in this. So we want good participation, but we need some good topics as well. We have a running list of topics that we want to cover. The permitting is one of them. Prevailing wages is another. We're trying to get lined up with the help of the center staff. There's some other things that we want to do, but yes, please give us some feedback on what you guys want to see us cover and what information we need to get out there for you guys. Sam, is there any other topics that we discussed that they might be interested in that we came through the brainstorming?
I think those were the heavy hitters.
We do want to do some like project showcases. Maybe have
Mhm.
the conservation districts bring a project and show to the rest of the conservation districts around, sort of a project highlight webinar. So we'd be throwing that over to you guys to help us out with that. And I think that would be great for everybody across the state to see the different projects that are going in, some of the issues that we ran into, some of the hurdles we had to jump over and to work through.
Mhm. So there is some more conversation in the chat. There's a question about can stream crossing permit fees be covered under admin fees? I think that there are some districts handling it, covering it under the main project funding for ACAP applications. Feel free, regional staff, to help chime in with that, or Eric.
Yeah, I don't really see a problem. I mean, you need the permits for the project to be able to be successful. I mean, I don't know what the permit fees are anymore. It can't be all that much, so it's just a drop in the bucket at this point. So I don't see a problem with throwing those permit fees towards that.
Mhm.
Jen, is there anything else that you think you want to touch on?
But we gave an update already really quickly on what was happening with the practice approval system trainings. And I think it's worth just reiterating that that was a really great and big moment for the ACAP program to launch that program. We anticipate, as Eric said, we're trying to speed up the implementation of all the modules of practice approval system as quickly as possible. So we'll be finishing grazing systems this summer. This fall, we'll launch right into watering systems. And then in each of the quarters for the next year, we'll cover the other 4 packages: stream corridor, cropland, stormwater, barnyard stormwater, and cropland practices, agronomic practices. So we're moving relatively quickly on that, but in the meantime, the emergency approval system does still exist. If you have staff or you are staff with existing competencies, whether you've been through job approval authority with NRCS or other extensive experience working with particular practices, you are more than welcome to let us know that you have practices that you feel competent to design and verify locally in your county and submit those to the emergency approval system, so we can keep you moving and being as efficient as possible. And then, of course, like we said, we have additional funding now for engineering practices. So we'll be able to try to cover the gap as much as possible while we're waiting for all the practice approval system modules to roll out. But we had great success at fundamentals. Again, the process is, if you're new staff, we'd really like to see you go to Keystone training first. If you've been around for a while, go right into fundamentals. And then from fundamentals, you go to applied training where you're actually doing the math. And then from there, you do a mock plan and an actual design of a project to finish your certification. So if you've got projects lined up and waiting in the county, you can move through pretty quickly as the modules roll out. And we look forward to seeing those actual project designs and getting them through the review and final approval process. If you don't have projects lined up, then you probably also don't need your practice approval system certification in a hurry, and that's okay. We'll hold on and we'll wait for you to have a eligible project to come along for you to finish that certification in your county as well. But we're really eager to keep that moving. I think it's a huge step, right? We've started the center in 2023. We didn't have our contract with HRG till the end of 2023, and it's June of 2025, and we are rolling. And I mean, it's a big kind of history in the making sort of moment. So we're excited for ACAP and Pennsylvania and what this looks like, because we're really the only state with a program like this. So see how it goes.
Thank you, Jen. And then to go off of what Jamie had written up in the chat, yeah, I do know of other districts that are separating things out versus bidding a whole project as one. I know some other counties that have had success with splitting things up a little bit. So that's a good point to make, and thank you for sharing that with us.
All right, well, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. We did have allotted an hour and a half for this, but so with the change of topics here, as far as the question and answer, we realized it wasn't going to be an hour and a half. I do want to say, if you guys, any district out there that feels like we're not reaching out to you, not contacting you enough, please reach out to us, because if you're not saying anything to us, we don't know. We try to be as responsive as possible, but sometimes things slip through the cracks. So if you send us an email or call us and we don't reach back to you within a day or two, please reach back out and say, hey, we need some help here. We love going out to site visits. We need to work with our center counterparts. So if there's any projects out there that you want us to take a look at, whether it's just to bring us out, just a meet and greet, just some in-person meetings, we're always up for that. We want to see projects on the ground. That'll help us out when we're assessing the program, when we're going through our quote unquote quality assurance, quality control checks. We would like to see these projects up front and personal. That way we can see stuff going on as they're happening. So we're not looking back and say, well, we could have done this different, or we could have done that different. We'd like to get our boots out on the ground and in-person meetings to help out. So please reach out to us, say, hey, we got some projects we want you to take a look at. They're going on right now. Let's go out. Let's do it. So we're always here for you. Any questions, any concerns, let us know. If you don't feel comfortable letting your regional staff know, let me know, and we can go about it that way too. So we're here for you. We're here for your support. Center staff is here for your support. Please use us. That's what we're here for.